Good afternoon. Welcome to Sports Nothing But Sports with Kent Sterling for Wednesday, February 5th, 2020, brought to you by the great people at Today's Dentistry, including Dr. Mike O'Neill, the best dentist I've ever gone to. He's been my dentist the past 26 years. You know why? Because he's the best. I do business with the best. You should too. Give him a call, 317-849-2933. What night of basketball we've got tonight, right? We had nothing last night, at least in town and in state, other than a really nice win by Ball State over the Fighting Sender-Offs of Kent State. Anytime Rob Senderoff gets beaten college basketball, we do a little dance around the Sterling home because Rob Senderoff is one of the great morons, one of the great doofuses in college basketball. So, that being said, let's talk about what's going on here tonight. And what's going on tonight in this state, really, really good stuff. At 7 o'clock, you got Purdue welcoming Iowa to Mackey Arena. That game, like I said, 7 o'clock on BTN. At 7:30, the Pacers taking on the Raptors. It's the fourth act of Victor's return to the NBA and to the Pacers. Hopefully, it's a little bit better than the first three acts where he went a combined 3 of 21 from beyond the arc. Not shooting well is Victor. That extended to practice yesterday where he was shooting, working on his shooting. It was not good. He was missing all over the place. Left, right, long, short. He was everywhere. Hopefully it's a little bit better tonight as he gets his legs underneath him with each subsequent game. He's going to play an extra minute a quarter, get to that 28-minute mark for the game rather than 24. So it's 7 minutes a quarter instead of 6 minutes a quarter. Okay, we'll see what that does for the Indiana Pacers. And then we've got the first game tonight is really, really good. My favorite college basketball game of the season every season. It's Butler and Villanova. These are two very, very well-coached programs, well-cultured programs. They fight hard. Both of these programs, every single possession of every single game, they bust their asses. And it's really fun to watch them play against each other. A guy who's going to be on the bench for Butler tonight, Jeff Meyer. He's been here with LaVall Jordan since LaVall Jordan came here to replace Chris Holtman. Jeff, one of the very, very few guys in the history of Indiana basketball to have been an assistant coach at Purdue, an assistant coach at Indiana, and an assistant coach twice at Butler. Plus, he's a graduate of Taylor University and their basketball program. All right, let's talk to Butler assistant Jeff Meyer. How you doing?
I always say better than I deserve. It's great to be back at Butler and in Hinkle Fieldhouse, and we've got a good basketball team, and we're trying to enjoy the season as best we can.
When you were here the first time, from what, 01 to 04, is that right? LaVall was a player?
LaVall was actually, he came in our second year, and he was our director of basketball operations, and that's how he and I began our working relationship.
Did you know he was going to be a good coach?
I saw him every day work, Kent, grind, as they say, and he studies the game, very creative. And then, our time at Michigan, he was tremendous with our players, relationally. Trey Burke, Tim Hardaway Jr., Glenn Robinson, Karis LeVert. He did a great job of helping them on the court because he was still playing at that point in time, and helping them off the court with their maturation. So, when you put all those years together, in my mind, there was no doubt that he was a rising star in our profession, and he is a tremendous head basketball coach.
Have you seen him grow? How's he changed?
Just his command of a room, his ability to message, his strength of voice and strength of just messaging with players. He's tremendous, and for him and for us it's more than just about basketball. We're training young men, trying to grow them. They're in foundational phases of their life, and he's investing into their development as young men.
You've been a coach for a long time, going back to Purdue. So it's been a long time. You got guys that you coached who are in their 60s. What do you love about this that keeps bringing you back and makes it a worthwhile exploit for you?
Well, I think back of getting into the profession, my high school coach made a tremendous impact on my life. And I love basketball and had an opportunity to play it at Taylor university here in the state. But I just wanted to get involved with teaching and coaching, and if I had the opportunity to invest in helping young men, invest in people's lives, a young man's life, and make a difference. So that's how it kind of started out, and it kind of grows in a matter of time. But at the end of the day, if I'm able to help Sean and Kamar in their life and their development, Kay Battle and Marquise Hastings are young guys that have high aspirations and are trying to get on the court right now. I feel like I have an opportunity to do that. And then also because of my experiences throughout the year, we've got Brandon Crone, who I actually recruited here, a young man on staff, Will Vergallo and Emerson Campen, Omar Lowry. These are young coaches that are trying to, in their own way, carve a path, a professional path. And hopefully with some of the experiences I've had, I can steer them in the right direction. So I have an opportunity to invest into young coaches also.
You were a really successful head coach at Liberty for a long time. It seems like you've made choices where you're an assistant and not necessarily, I mean, you could be a head coach. What do you love about being an assistant, and what did you love about being a head coach?
Well, certainly that was many, many years ago. And, you just kind of follow the path that you feel like having a faith walk the Lord wants for you. And I, start out like helping Greg Marshall in his first collegiate job at Winthrop University. And, of course, Greg's an outstanding coach now at Wichita State. So I had 3 years with Greg. And then, Todd calls, and I have an opportunity to come back home and be at Butler. And Todd's a tremendous basketball coach. Kudos for him. He's back in the saddle at Evansville right now. I'm happy for he and Joez. And then, it just kind of grows from there. I had an opportunity to work with Quinn Snyder at Missouri, which didn't end well for us, but he's doing outstanding in the NBA and at Utah. And then, Quinn he knew Kelvin, and I'm an Indiana guy. I didn't know Kelvin Sampson, and he gets the job at Indiana. He wants to hire an Indiana guy, and Quinn kind of helps me with that opportunity. And as you well know, and your listeners well know, it didn't end well for us. But then I had a relationship with John Beilein, all the way back to when he was at Richmond. I was at Liberty. Knew John, got to be friends with John, and he knew of my background and my heart and my desire to help young men. And he gave me the opportunity at Michigan. So I've worked with some really outstanding college coaches, and now I'm with what I feel like is as good as any of them in Val Jordan.
Jeff, you mentioned Taylor. Taylor's been a place that has launched so many coaching careers, right? What is it about Taylor and that basketball program that, like Holtman, they're just gobs of guys who become coaches? What is it?
Well, I think Paul Patterson, tremendous basketball coach. Paul coached Kentucky All-Stars back when he was at Ashland. He gets the job as a young man at a young coach at Taylor, and he's an outstanding basketball coach. And every day is there's like a clinic for Chris Holtman, for John Gross. And so, they had great mentorship, and I became really good friends with Paul. We helped each other consistently throughout the 90s. He was at Taylor, I was at Liberty. And but I do think that a lot of his former players had a great passion for the game of basketball. They were able to kind of learn day by day on the job from Coach Patterson and his mentorship. And both those guys do an outstanding job. Akron's having a really good year. Of course, we know what Chris was able to do here at Butler. And they're tremendous friends, and our Taylor connection is something I feel very, very blessed with.
Being a coach, it's a wacky profession, isn't it? You really don't know whether, like with Holt, the timing just worked out great, right? And then he delivered. Sometimes the timing's wrong, sometimes the timing's great. What's the difficult part of this job that maybe an idiot like me doesn't understand?
Well, I don't think you're an idiot, Kent. Let's start there.
Very generous of you.
You know what? I always say coaching's more of an art than a science. You think of building a house and you got to have a blueprint, and you follow the blueprint and you can build a house like a constructor. But coaching's more like chemistry. It's more like chemistry. Sometimes you got to be at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Some teams you have to drill more. Some teams you have to play more. Some teams need more film. Some teams just need to go to the court and get reps. And so coaching, in a lot of ways, there's no real blueprint to it, although you could probably look at some different careers and career paths and find some positive ones. But I really feel like it's more like an art. It's more like the chemist that you just kind of got to go with the flow sometime, kind of see and read the situation, and right place, right time for some. And, there are some guys that are at the right job at the wrong time, and that happens. Just talking about it, I think, having a persevering spirit, having a positive approach, in all situations, try to learn, try to grow, and turn negatives into positives and move forward with it. It's a lot like what we tell our kids at timeouts. You got to get to the next play. The turnover we just made, the bad shot we just took, you got to move forward with it. And so in that light, the game of basketball can become a life application.
It really can't it? I mean, it's like you can learn so many lessons, and I think this is true for a lot of sports, but I think it's especially true with basketball that you can learn a gob about life. Basketball can reward individual excellence, but in the end, it's always the collective that's really important, and that's such a life lesson, isn't it?
No question. A rising tide lifts all boats. And, with our guys today, it is a little bit different just because they've come through a time where most of them have been told they're really special. And then they get to a team where you have 13 really special guys, and now we got to think about, okay, what's best for the team? And Val does a tremendous job. I thought Coach Licklider was tremendous. You talk about the Butler way. It demands a commitment. It strives for improvement, and you're putting the team above yourself. And when you're able to do that, life is a team sport. And you know this, and your listeners know this, but that's one of the beauties of the sport, being able to give yourself over to a cause that's greater than yourself. Tell kids all the time, I've met a lot of people, a lot of successful people in my life journey. The happiest people I know are the ones that serve others and are able to give themselves over to a cause greater than themselves. Those are the happiest people I know.
Let me ask you about the Butler way. I'll talk to recruiting expert type guys, and they talk about you got to have talent. And if you don't have talent, you can't possibly win, so don't waste my time with all this culture nonsense. This is what they tell me. I think culture is really important. I think that culture is the binding agent for the team. Of course, you got to have talent, but how important is culture? What kind of a point of differentiation is it?
Culture is your foundation. We're playing a team tonight that has tremendous culture. Villanova, they've got a tremendous culture. Our culture is built around the Butler way. Their culture is built around attitude. Yeah. And so in my mind, talent is a part of the equation. But culture and talent ultimately wins. Not just talent, but culture and talent ultimately will win.
When you go out and recruit, can you tell a Butler kid, can you walk into a gym and say, oh, that kid exhibits the features of a Butler guy?
No. You have to spend time with them. You have to talk with them. You got to kind of hear what their dreams are, what they dream about, what they sing about, what makes them happy, what makes them cry, what they get upset about. I mean, you kind of dive into who they are. And, once you spend time with a prospect, either on campus, on the phone, in their home, you can get a pretty good feel for whether or not it's a fit. And that's, when you think about recruiting here at Butler, it is unique because we're looking for kids who fit the Butler way.
Talking to Jeff Meyer. Jeff, you got, these are, this game tonight that you mentioned against Villanova, I love talking to the Butler kids. I love talking to the Villanova guys. I love watching those two teams fight because it's really a possession-by-possession kind of battle of will. It just seems that these two teams, they match up great together, almost like a boxing match. Boxing matches are about matchups, right? What makes this special?
Well, the culture that Villanova has much respect for Jay and the work that he does, and and certainly our culture here is time tested and proven. But I think that when you get to the court, it's a lot about execution. Who can physically do the job on the court collectively, screening, spacing, cutting, making shots. Finishing around the rim. We know it's going to be a physical game. Both teams do a great job of trying to force misses. So once you get onto the court, the culture all kind of sets the table. It becomes a matter of execution.
Let me ask you this. How much, like you talked about this, and Laval does too, about this being a developmental program, and that's a big part of your life, as you mentioned, getting these guys from where they are here to being good parents, good grandparents, good people. Nobody's going to retire from basketball. None of these guys are going to retire from basketball and then just go away. They've got to do something with their lives. Your attention to a game like tonight's game against Villanova versus the time you spend thinking about ways to help develop these guys? I know they're intertwined a bit, but what do you spend more time pondering?
You know what? Right now it's game, day before game. We're looking at a lot of video. We are trying to encourage our kids' hearts. I've always felt like, and I shared this a number of years ago with John Beeline when we were in a tough stretch at Michigan. Once the calendar hits February 1st, you're coaching heart as much as you're coaching the body and the mind. You want to build them up, and you want their hearts to be full for each other and for the game. So, we're spending time right now talking to our kids before practice, after practice, about the joy they get from playing, the joy that the game and their teammates, are we playing for each other? But February 1st, in my mind, has always been calendar turns to cut the practices back. We kind of are who we are. We'll get better during some games. And, we need to play with hearts for each other, hearts for the game, the joy of the game. And if we can get our kids to do that and stay connected, good things are going to happen.
Were you with Beeline from the beginning at Michigan?
No, I was. He had 1 year at Michigan. Okay. And then our experience at Indiana went south. Yeah. And then he brought me up as a administrative assistant. And then he put me on the court 2 years in.
What made here? I want to ask you about a kid, and I almost never do that. But he's a good kid. He's from Carmel, Stuart Douglas. So Stu was a kid. When I saw him in high school, I was like, Michigan? How the hell is this kid going to play at Michigan? He was really successful at Michigan, and he's made money playing basketball. What's the key to Stuart Douglas? What made him that?
Well, number one, Stu had a great passion for the game because we were at Indiana. We recruited him. Felt like he would be a good player at a mid-major level, but because he chose Michigan, put himself in a developmental system because skill development, player development, expanding your abilities was huge for Coach Beeline and for Coach Jordan, for us here. I mean, it is a skill development program. And he was able, because of his passion for the game, to take his game. He developed his ball handling. He developed his jump shot. He developed a mid-range game. He became a really good defender. And he just took parts of his game and got better and better and better. And then his leadership as a senior. He and Zach Novak were our captains when no one thought we could possibly win a Big Ten championship. And and they won the first Big Ten championship for Michigan in like a decade. So, but Stu was a blessing to coach. He was bright, but in my mind, and you didn't know this, but yeah, he had a great passion for basketball. He ended up he's still playing, and you would have never known that if you met Stu on the front end. You'd think, oh, he's going to get a degree and probably make lots of money in some office somewhere, and still playing basketball. So his love for the game, his passion, in my mind, was a real divider, and then he took the opportunity at Michigan to develop his game.
Thanks, Coach. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate what you do here in India, keeping listeners and the sports enthusiasts informed of what's going on around Indianapolis and the state of Indiana.
That's Butler assistant coach Jeff Meyer. What a really, really good dude. Fun conversation. Enjoyed it immensely, as I expect to enjoy tonight the game between the Butler Bulldogs and the Villanova Wildcats. Jay Wright, LaValle Jordan, the Butler culture, the Butler way, the Villanova culture. When those two teams play each other, I just think it's great college basketball. It's a possession-by-possession game, and the first one to blink usually loses. I love watching that kind of basketball. It's about execution. It's about heart. They're as good as they're going to get. They're evenly matched. This should be a terrific game. And like we mentioned in the open, you've got Purdue and Iowa up at Mackey, which is going to be terrific. Purdue really needs a win. Or that game this coming Saturday against Indiana at Simon Scott Assembly Hall. Holy hell, is that going to be important for the Boilermakers and for the Hoosiers? The winner of that is likely to go to the NCAA tournament, and the loser of that game is likely not to. How huge is that game going to be? And then, of course, in Toronto, you've got the Pacers taking on the Raptors, and we'll see how that evolution of this team with Victor Oladipo being an active member of it, how that continues to transpire. The NBA trade deadline tomorrow, TJ Leaf, he might go someplace. I don't think anybody else is going to. But as soon as you think you understand how that stuff works, you know what? They kind of throw it back in your face by doing exactly what you don't believe is going to happen. But I think that I know Kevin Pritchard reasonably well, Nate McMillan reasonably well. They don't like drama. I don't think that they're going to court more drama by swapping out part of this roster to bring in some new blood. I just don't see that happening. Another piece of sports news, Pete Rose has asked Rob Manfred, the commissioner of Major League Baseball, to be removed from the ineligible list. He wants to be eligible for the Hall of Fame. 30 and a half years ago, Pete Rose, the all-time hits leader, he was suspended by Bart Giamatti for gambling on baseball. Supposedly, there was a deal worked out that Giamatti was going to remove him from the list eventually. Giamatti died not long after making that suspension. So now it's up to Manfred to do what other commissioners have not done, and that's decide to remove Pete Rose and say enough's enough. You know, if you commit murder, you do about 20, 25 years in jail, right? Pete Rose bet on baseball. Isn't it about time for Major League Baseball to forgive Pete Rose? Not forget, but forgive Pete Rose. Has not his example served as a disincentive proportionate to the crime for everybody in baseball? You know, Pete Rose, without Pete Rose in Cooperstown, right, on that stage, as they introduce all the Hall of Famers, Pete Rose not being there, it just seems weird. I have no great love for Pete Rose, despite the fact that he's a great interview. One of the funnest guys to interview in the history of the world, because he still hates the Chicago Cubs. So talking to Pete about those wars back in 1969, 70, 71, 72, with Billy Williams and Ernie Banks and Kessinger and Beckert and Santo, you had Rose and Perez and Morgan and Bench and all those guys talking about those games that those two teams played against each other. I can't have more fun than that. I have an affinity for that conversation. I have no personal affinity for Pete Rose at all. But looking at the facts, my God, is 30 and a half years not long enough to not be inducted into baseball's Hall of Fame for a guy who otherwise absolutely would be in the Hall of Fame? I think it's time to look at Pete. I think it's time to look at Shoeless Joe Jackson and induct him into the Baseball Hall of Fame. What's it been? Almost 75 years since he passed away for the love of God. It's time to let it go. It's time to not let bygones be bygones, but understand that there are sins for which you should be able to be forgiven. And I think betting on baseball is one of them, all right? Tomorrow morning, bright and early, Breakfast with Kent at 8 o'clock on Facebook Live, at about 8:15 on Periscope Live and on Twitter Live. It's a show so nice we do it twice. Hopefully we're wrapping up 3 wins by Purdue, Butler, Pacers. That would be a good night. We didn't have a great weekend this past weekend. A lot of losing went on. Tonight, hopefully that changes for the Bulldogs, the Boilers, and the Pacers. We'll talk about it tomorrow morning. Can't wait. Join me then.